I had started work at the super jail in 2006, and part of what my job as a clinical social worker was to do what was called an LSIOR, or a canned assessment. And it's on a computer. The questions are predetermined, and then you get a score for whatever you come up with that measures both the risk to reoffend and the risk for security within the institution. And one of the questions is, have you ever been sexually abused? Well, I remember the first guy who disclosed to me, because when I asked the question, he was like a deer in the headlights, just like frozen solid. He didn't blink, I think, for about a year after that. And you could see the sweat just coming down. And that poor man had never told anybody about what had been done to him in a training school here in Ontario. And he also couldn't say anything about it to his family even then, because he comes from a culture that has no tolerance for anything that even has the appearance of homosexuality. But more and more men started disclosing to me. I don't know what it is about survivors, but maybe we have a radar about each other. But for whatever reason, I was able to make them feel safe enough that for the first time in their lives, they were disclosing this information to me. So when I heard about this conference, although I knew perhaps in retrospect that maybe there was something brewing within me, I needed to get more information about how to deal with this, because I had no training on this, having even worked in child welfare for 16 years prior to that. I never heard it from an adult male. I always had that context of dealing with kids. And for all these guys now telling me that they were abused one way or another, I said, I've got to figure out some way to deal with this in a clinical and professional way that meets their needs, because I'm feeling overwhelmed with all this stuff. And so I went to the conference in 2008 in March, and within an hour and a half of the first guy speaking, I remember what appeared to me, very large black man coming up to the microphone and telling this enormous room full of strangers about how he had been sexually abused by his stepfather. An hour and a half later, I'm upstairs in my room trying to have a cigarette. I'm like this, back in the days when you could still smoke in a hotel room. I couldn't even put a goddamn cigarette in my mouth. I was shaking. And I had the good fortune to be with a colleague from work, another guy, and I said to him, that could have been my story. That's all I said. And I just let him think about whatever it meant to him. And then all sorts of memories and flashbacks, guilt, shame, it just came oozing out of every pore in my body, and I'm thinking, this is going to kill me. And I actually felt suicidal for a number of months. I didn't want to tell anybody. I was carrying this enormous weight because everything that I had heard at the conference suddenly made sense. The interactions, the grooming, the techniques that they use, all of this thinking, I had done this voluntarily when I didn't have a snowball's chance in hell. I was like a trout on a line. And just being a normal 13-year-old boy who was brought up to listen to his elders, do as you're told. The people, the adults in your life, they're the ones in charge.